So joining us to dig into what we know so far, finance expert and executive director of mergers and acquisitions at Post Oak Group, James Vrachas. James, thanks for your time today. So this announcement from President Trump that China will be purchasing these 200 jets is actually fewer than what was expected, and shares fell after the news. So how big of a deal is this purchase from your perspective, and what does it signal as far as broader U.S. China commercial relations?
This is a very significant deal. It's no surprise, as you say, that the share price dropped. That was simply an expectations gap, just like any stock price. If investors are expecting a specific positive outcome, in this case, they were expecting approximately 500 aircraft being purchased by China, and so 200 was significantly below expectations. However, we would expect this to merely be a short-term impact to Boeing. In the long term, as you say, this actually is a very positive sign of a strategic partnership, let's say, between Boeing and China. If we look at a historical concept, this actually indicates a more broader trend beyond just the aircraft industry, beyond just Boeing. If we go back as far as 1972, when President Nixon visited China and actually agreed to the purchasing of certain Boeing aircraft, this was a significant indicator of China and the US opening up their trade relationships rather than isolation. So we see this as a very significant long-term play, especially considering China has not made a significant purchase of Boeing aircraft in nearly a decade. So this indicates long-term strength, not just for Boeing, but also openness between US and China trade relations.
And James, there have been so many shakeups to commerce, including, of course, with the tariff. So is this an indication that maybe we're now starting to see some stabilization?
Yes, absolutely. This is in the broader context, as you say, of broader US China trade relationships, which has several factors beyond simply aircraft. As you saw with President Trump's decision to take a wide variety of CEOs, such as Elon Musk, Tim Cook, etc., this indicates that this U.S.-China summit went beyond aircraft to all sorts of issues like AI, semiconductors, and of course national security and the potential opening up of the Strait of Hormuz. So we can see this move by China to purchase 200 Boeing aircraft as a symbolic move of their openness to trading with the USA, which can of course give them leverage in other negotiation items.
So, James, this is all about trade. Right now, a vital waterway is essentially at a standstill. Both the U.S. and China agree that the Strait of Hormuz needs to reopen, but we're not seeing, at least not yet, any concrete solutions on exactly how to do that. How much longer do you think the U.S. and China can sustain if it is not fully reopened? And does China maybe have an advantage there?
At the end of the day, as you say, the Strait of Hormuz is one of the most significant, not just geopolitical, but economic situations in modern times. You're representing approximately 20% of oil trade. So both China and the USA and the broader economy really need this strait to be reopened. So we would not expect this to be used as a bargaining chip where China wants to keep it closed. This is going to be a high priority on either side. However, as you said, we did not see a specific agreement or specific plan at this summit. All we really saw in a broader context is a symbol that the US and China are willing to work together on overall trade relations, such as with aircraft, which could be an indicator, but it remains to be seen that they could work together more closely in opening up the Strait of Hormuz for their mutual benefit.
All right, so finishing now on this summit, so many CEOs accompanying the president there to Beijing. What do you think the summit means for capital investment and for long-term corporate planning?
As you say, what we saw is not just a geopolitical summit, but a commercial and economic summit with CEOs from a variety of industries in AI, semiconductors, technology, etc. This does indicate an openness between US and China to trade to mutual benefit on all of those issues. It also indicates the priority from the Trump administration to repair what they consider to be the trade imbalance between the US and China. Now, there is a lot of speculation or investor sentiment now that a large Boeing deal, for example, is an indicator of repairing that trade imbalance. Now, it is quite a significant movement towards repairing the trade imbalance. However, the trade imbalance remains structural in the global economy. China remains the factory of the world, let's say, the manufacturing hub of the world. So this retains the position of a trade imbalance between US and China. However, the purchase of the Boeing aircraft indicates a stabilization of that trade imbalance. And of course, for President Trump, which he will emphasize, will have a long-term positive impact on domestic manufacturing within the USA, which has a positive impact on jobs across the aircraft industry and manufacturing more broadly.
All right, finance expert James Vrachas, thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me.